Welcome to the Farmstead Farm Podcast, guys. This is your first episode introducing myself as your host and how a nurse practitioner got into raising meat rabbits. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to the Farmstead Forum Podcast, where we say, come grow with us. Geared towards homesteaders and farmsteaders in the southeastern United States, we dive into essential tips, business tactics, and clever hacks to make your farm thrive. Connect with like-minded folks, share experiences, and grow your network. Let's build a stronger homesteading community together. I'm your host, Emily Faulkner, and today I'm going to talk about why I got into homesteading. Why did a nurse practitioner start raising her own meat rabbits? Well, you see, it started about 15 years ago. I'll start with my background in nursing and how I came to live in Georgia and start homesteading. Basically, I met my husband 15 years ago. His name's Brandon. We were both at a Georgia-Florida football game, and I decided that he was the one I was going to marry. Fast forward to a year later, we got married. We moved to California from Georgia. We stayed there about 2 years. I was already a nurse then, so I did some travel nursing. Ended up, I did start gardening then, even though we were in a small apartment. We had a ground level apartment with a courtyard attached. So I ended up starting to learn how to grow tomatoes, which have been I will say, the blood, sweat, and tears of my gardening experience thus far. So worked ER out in California. I was prior to that a trauma nurse in Macon, Georgia. So did some traveling in the emergency rooms in LA, and then eventually ended up in San Jose. So we moved in, this would be 12 years ago now, we moved back to Georgia. I kept gardening, still trying to grow those tomatoes. And my gardening, I guess the level or the scale of gardening had increased exponentially. I started doing raised bed gardening, and I had a large sand area that I turned into our garden plot. It used to be a big in-ground pool. So I started to learn more about gardening then. 2015, I graduated nurse practitioner school, and I went to work for Summit Urgent Care in Noonan, where I learned about primary care. I had a lot of patients without insurance, so I started learning how to treat them appropriately. Then in 2020, I took a job in Carrollton, Georgia as a primary care nurse practitioner for a direct pay office. And for those of you who don't know, direct pay is like a clinic that you're just dealing directly with the clinic. You're not dealing with insurance. You can bill insurance, but that falls on your responsibility if it's an office that's set up this way. And what this does is it does enhance your level of control in your own healthcare. There's a lot of things that patients don't realize and is determined or dictated by insurance, namely what tests your doctor orders or what they're allowed to do for you based off reimbursement rates from the insurance companies. So this is a different model of care. And again, it's called a direct pay. So anyways, getting off topic a little bit. So 2020 is also when my mom and I started making wine. And I will tell you guys, I did not get into this. I guess at any point in my life, I always just need a push. It's hard for me to get started on something. I've realized very quickly that I suffer from something called analysis paralysis, which I'm sure some of you people know what I'm talking about. And what happened, my stepdad, who I call dad, he said, we need to do something with these muscadines. Why don't y'all make wine with it? And we'd already made jelly, and there's only so much jelly that you can eat, right? So my mom and I set out to learn how to make wine. And we were very unsuccessful a few times. It was an explosive ordeal, but we ended up making several good batches. And just, every year we'd learn from what recipes worked or didn't work the year before. And we've had a great time. It's been enjoyable for me just spending that time with my mom. So that was in 2020, as we had a lot, of course, of free time on our hands, not, going places or really doing much. We decided to really ramp up starting the winemaking at home. And we have muscadines, we have blueberries and peaches, pears. So the fruits that we've used in the past have been fruits that we've made or grown and then make the wine. We also have used some blueberries that were harvested from a nearby farm. And also I have used blueberries from Azure Standard, but we always use our own muscadines because we have a plethora of those. Blueberries in the South can sometimes be hit or miss. Depends on if they're protected by tree line or if they have a windbreak, because if we get a bad freeze, it'll, ruin the blueberry crop. So anyhow, okay, 2020. What else happened in 2020? I know you guys are aware, but COVID hit. And this is where my career kind of took a turn, I would say, for the better. I saw very quickly how much the westernized medicine has become corrupt, but also just the government. I had to second guess what I had been taught. And this comes with, I have to say this in a careful way because I don't want to say anything that will get my podcast removed. But I started to analyze things in a different light. And this also included my approach to healthcare and how I looked at the patient. And so looking at someone from a more functional, root cause of why they have the symptoms they have, I had to consider lifestyle and their diet specifically. So when I started looking at the patient from more of a functional, holistic mindset, I started asking different questions. I did this also not even just of my own accord. I took advice from fellow nurse practitioner that was also in Georgia, and just looking at what questions she would ask. She's a functional nurse practitioner. She would always ask questions about exercise. She would ask questions about sleep. What else? Their diet. What did they eat yesterday? What do they have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? These aren't things that I had ever asked my patients. And of course, I might ask a diabetic if their sugar was high. Well, what did you eat yesterday? Well, this was a different approach. It was highlighting different aspects of the patient's routines or habits that might indicate why they had the issues they had instead of just giving them a pill. When I started looking at healthcare that way, it really led me to homesteading because it's hard to get healthy foods from the store. You need to look at ingredients. You need to know where, the meat was raised, what kind of food the animals were eating when they were being grown. I started looking at why GMO foods could affect your hormones. So for those of you who don't know, GMO is genetically modified. I'm drawing a blank right now what the O stands for, but if you look on your ingredients list, it's anything that says bioengineered ingredients. So if you are trying to be careful with your hormones, you have to stay away from anything that has that in there. And some of it is as whoever is growing the ingredients for that product, some of it is they're trying to make the vegetable or that food item more disease resistant or pest resistant, but it changes the DNA of the food. So I started looking at GMO foods, how those affect your health. Fast forward to 2022, I went to Roy Feek's Homestead Festival in Columbia, Tennessee, and had an amazing time. I went with 3 of my girlfriends who are all nurses. One was also a nurse practitioner like me. We just left inspired, empowered. I felt this longing or this urge to bring something like that festival to my area in Georgia. Wasn't quite sure. I don't know where it came from. I just said, this is awesome. I wish I had something like this close to home. Then fast forward to 2023, for the second time, I went to the Homestead Festival. I re-met some of the speakers that I had initially talked to after their sessions, made some connections at this festival, and I really enjoyed it again. And so each time that I came back, I would learn more information. Maybe, it was a new skill or something else that I wanted to learn to do for myself. And it's just been a process of gradually changing habits, routines. It's not something that happens overnight. I would say only really in the last 2 years have I actually been homesteading per se. Before that, I didn't mention this initially, but I had about 10 years of prepping that I had been doing with my family, putting up food for long-term storage. And just in the event that for some reason we couldn't get food from the grocery store, what would you do? I mean, literally, they only have about 3 days worth of food for the community. So I'd been doing that for a while, but this was different because homesteading is about bringing everything back to the home, like making things and being a producer instead of a consumer is how I would put it. And so looking at my notes here, so that was 2023. 2024, this year, I have finally, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but in the South, we're really good at producing a summer garden, but we're not so good at producing a winter garden. So one of my goals in the last couple of years was to produce more food during the wintertime. So this year I grew leeks, I grew kale, lettuce, and Vidalia onions in the wintertime. And I'm still harvesting that right now, and I'm just now planting my summer garden. So I was beyond proud of myself, I should say. I felt a sense of achievement after I did my first winter garden. So that was for this year. And the biggest homesteading achievement that I had for this year was our meat rabbits. Last year we got 2 New Zealand rabbits. They were not purebred. They're, just for meat rabbits. So we didn't mind that they weren't purebred, but I got them from a local farm because I decided I wanted to try something. We have a small 2-acre homestead, and then my parents have 20 acres behind us, so that's where our big garden is at. But for our property, to raise meat, you're kind of limited what you can actually produce. So we elected for rabbits. So when I did the rabbits, we just decided to start small because after going to 2 homestead festivals now, I quickly learned that it's better to start small and then gradually increase, as you learn. And it's better to fail small than to fail big. So we did the meat rabbits this year, and we processed 4 kits. And then we ended up culling the doe because she became kind of vicious, unfortunately. I don't know what changed her behavior, but she started scratching and drawing blood on you when you tried to grab her out of the cage. Just very unusual the way her behavior changed. But we have, eaten our first meat that we've actually grown and produced on our homestead, and that was definitely a sense of achievement. So my next kind of big goal for this year is I really wanted to start this podcast to connect local homesteaders and farmers with each other. Sometimes I think that homesteading can be isolating. People don't realize how much they need each other, how much they need community. My heart in this is to create an atmosphere of learning with this podcast, help you maybe meet other people in your community. I want to ask you guys, if you have not already found us on Facebook, we have a public Facebook group called the Farmstead Forum. You can go on there, request to join, and you can be linked with other people in your community potentially. Most of the Facebook members right now are people from Georgia, mainly people that I know or have invited, but then people are inviting their friends. And I've kind of wanted to keep it to like the Southeastern farm community, homesteading community, but I would love for people to be able to teach each other skills. You can't just call just anyone to help you butcher chickens, your meat birds. But if you did know someone who wanted to learn and it's, someone that's in your community, why would you not ask them to help? It would help you get it done faster. You'd be teaching them a skill, and maybe even, they could barter something in the future, like if you wanted to exchange some meat birds for, wine. Which is one reason why we thought it would be a good idea to make wine, so it would be a good barter item. So it's just really a good idea to learn who you can trust in your community. What do the people even in your 10-minute radius have to offer, and hold on just a second. And also, what can you source locally instead of going to the grocery store? For me, I have decided to get raw milk from a friend of mine that's not even 10 minutes from my house. And when she has milk, I get it from her. When she doesn't have milk, I get it from a local mercantile that's less than 15 minutes from my house. And I feel better about buying from them, even though it's a little bit more expensive than the grocery store. I know that milk was not pasteurized, and we could get into this whole raw milk debate, but I know that the animals were well cared for. Raw milk has a lot of benefits. If you're not aware, I'm going to have someone on here in the near future that can tell you all about the raw milk craze and what it's about. But I do value the time that I have with my milkmaid lady. It is funny how you really get to know someone meeting with them once a week for, 8 months out of the year. You just talk and you really get to know them, and they become a friend. And I know that if something happened and I needed milk and she wanted wine, or, if I had some vegetables, I think she would be willing to trade, So it's good to know people in your community, just in case, in the event that you were not able to get something from the store or you wanted to try to get something local. You actually know people. Go to your local farmers market, meet some of your farmers, ask them about their farming practices. It's a great thing if you can find someone that does regenerative farming. That's just a fancy term for adding, organic material, compost into the soil to help with the soil health and therefore the nutrient uptake of the plants. You'll have a much tastier produce, for one thing, but then you'll also have someone that is adding back to the soil, and instead of just taking, they're giving to the soil as well. So start with your local farmers market. If you don't know anyone that sells raw milk in your area, then just start by going to your farmers market, start buying your vegetables there. If you want to start learning about canning, you can still get your vegetables. If you don't have a large growing area, you can get your vegetables from the farmers market and start canning that way. Just, it doesn't have to be raising meat rabbits. Homesteading can be making bread. It could be, making butter from the milk that you get each week. So I think homesteading looks different depending on your current situation. But that's what the homesteading lifestyle has been for me. I've started also making butter, making cheese. We make wine, and I've tried to prioritize making things from home. It's not convenient. I don't always want to do it, but I know it's better for the health of my family. And I'm willing to go that extra amount of time because I know that in the end it'll pay off. So that's all for today. And I will see you guys on the next podcast. And if you have questions or if you want to possibly come on our show, if your brand resonates with mine, I will definitely consider you for an interview. If you will send me an email at info@farmsteadforum.com, I can get with you about an interview time and tell you how to do that from our website. Thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you next week. Hey, thanks for listening. Join our Facebook group and follow us on Instagram for the latest updates. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website for upcoming events. For sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us through our website. See you next time.